Woolpower is proof that clothing companies can offer sensible salaries, secure employment, and a work environment where people enjoy themselves. What do you know about the person who made your sweater? All too often in the textile industry, we hear about child labour, long working days without breaks, a ban on toilet visits, and almost non-existent salaries. We do not accept that. That's why we make all our clothes at our factory in Östersund in northern Sweden, and have done so since the beginning of 1969. In that way, we know how the people who make our clothes are feeling, and we can offer the highest possible quality in our products. One might say that we work with warmth in a double sense of the word. We make high-quality, warm woolen products with a focus on functionality, and we also take good care of our employees, partners, animals, and the environment. Today, we consume more than the Earth's resources can sustain. Woolpower doesn't want to contribute to a throwaway society. So we produce timeless and functional garments that will last for a long time. Your woolen sweater can be your companion for several decades. It might become weary, but it will work perfectly anyway. We make warm base and mid layers, socks and accessories in merino wool, all the way from the yarn to finished garments. When you wear our clothes, you can be confident that they've been made with care for the nature around us and for the environment for those who work at Woolpower. There's a lot of wastage in a textile factory. Leftover pieces of fabric that aren't fit for use and other items that don't reach our quality requirements are usually thrown away. Because we have our factory in Östersund, we can recycle the leftover material. First, it is felted, and after that, new products can be manufactured, such as warm insoles or sitting pads. The colour of these products varies, and we call it recycled grey. Woolpower is environmentally certified according to ISO standards, and our materials are Oeko-Tex certified, an international certification that ensures that the garment does not contain any toxic substances. The process begins with the merino sheep that graze in the Argentinian part of Patagonia and in Uruguay, where we know that they've had good pastures and are treated well. The sheep are sheared every year between September and November. Because the wool grows constantly, shearing is a must for their well-being, and Woolpower needs a lot of wool. The wool from one sheep is sufficient for 2 Woolpower jackets. Some people think that wool is itchy and feels harsh against the skin. This is because the wool fibres have different levels of coarseness, and some varieties don't flatten against the skin, but stick straight into it instead. Coarseness is measured in microns, and 1 micron represents 1,000th of a millimetre. From this, we can say that fine wool is between 17 and 23 microns, and coarse fibres of over 28 microns may feel itchy. The finer the wool fibres, the softer it feels to us. But wool is a weak fibre that breaks easily, so the finer it is, the weaker it is too. To make the clothes last as long as possible, Woolpower always chooses the thickest wool fibre possible before the itchy level. So, our undergarments don't itch at all, and they last for a long time. Dressing to keep warm isn't particularly hard if you know that you're just going to sit still. You simply put on several layers. Neither is it too hard to know how to dress for more strenuous activity, like skiing. In that case, you simply dress lightly so that you won't sweat. The difficulty comes when we switch between strenuous and still over and over again. That's when you get hot and sweaty and then cold and wet. How should you dress in this situation? Nature solved this problem long before we started researching it through its own natural material, wool. So far, nobody has been able to reproduce a synthetic fibre with the unique properties of wool. One of the most important natural properties of wool is that it can keep you warm even when you're sweaty and wet. The main reason for this is that the wool fibre makes sure that the moisture moves away from the body. It does so in 2 ways. Firstly, it encases the moisture inside the wool fibre. In fact, the volume of the fibre can increase by as much as 30% by encasing moisture. The second way is that the wool fibre can transport moisture very well. When it's warmer on the inside of the garment than the outside, the fibre can transport the moisture to the outside of the garment to achieve an even weight. Another unique property of wool fibre is that it's crinkly. For the body to retain its own heat when it's cold, the clothes must be able to trap air. Air that doesn't move is the best insulation of body heat. The crinkles in the wool trap large volumes of air, providing very effective insulation. Merino wool can have up to 40 crinkles per centimetre. Despite all the good qualities that wool fibre possesses, it also has some disadvantages too. For example, it's very weak and breaks easily, and the material may also shrink and change in shape when you wash it. As early as the 1970s, Woolpower started developing clothes for extreme weather conditions for the Swedish military, together with other specialists such as doctors and researchers. The clothes were to endure the cold, be very durable, and function during different levels of activity. So a person shouldn't get cold when sitting still after being very active and sweating a lot. It was a big challenge, but based on these requirements, the unique Ullfrotte original material was created. And it consists of fine merino wool, polyamide, polyester, and air. Yes, we usually say that 80% of the garment is made up of air, and this baffles many people. The fact is that air doesn't transport heat away to such a great extent as textiles and other materials do. So, we knit our fabric into large, loose terry loops that create air pockets against the skin. That, combined with the wool's waxy fibres, traps extra air. So the airy fabric has very few contact points with the body, which means there are very few points where the body's heat can escape. So, when you wear a Woolpower undergarment next to your skin, you insulate your own body heat. We also add in synthetic fibres to make it hard-wearing. The synthetic fabric has very strong fibres that can take wear and tear, as well as retain the shape of the garment. It also extends the lifespan of the clothes. You've probably experienced the feeling when a garment has been worn so much that the fabric's almost gone, but there's still a thin net that holds it all together. What you feel then is the synthetic fibres. Ullfrotte Original may actually sometimes be too warm. So in warmer temperatures or during more strenuous activity, it's better to use our light base layers. The light fabric is flat knitted, which means that there aren't any air pockets next to the skin. Light doesn't trap as much air, so it doesn't insulate as effectively. Even though the light fabric contains more wool, it's actually cooler than the Ullfrotte Original. The flat knit also creates a very flexible and smooth fabric, which makes it very comfortable. Once you've had your Woolpower garment for a while, you might notice that it becomes a bit bobbly. This is completely normal, and there's a simple explanation. We make our clothes out of natural materials, and the bobbles don't impair the functionality at all. We've chosen to keep the crinkly nature of the yarn instead of brushing it out. We don't spin the yarn so hard either, and we knit it as loosely as we can with the loops on the inside. All of that combined means that the fabric can get bobbly over time, but in return, you get a garment that collects air, transports excess moisture, and keeps you warm and dry. So you choose. It's either an enjoyable and warm day out skiing, or it's looking good at the afterski. At Woolpower, we choose a good day out skiing any day. We all know that a sweaty synthetic jumper doesn't smell very good. Wool, on the other hand, is easy to take care of and doesn't smell bad. The ability of wool fibre to absorb and neutralise bad odours is far superior to other textile materials. Simply hanging the garment outside for a bit can be enough. But when you feel that it's time to wash the garment, you can do so. Our Ullfrotte Original and Woolpower Light base layers can be machine washed at 60 degrees Celsius if necessary. This is unusual for wool, and it's important to us because certain bacteria don't die at below 55 degrees Celsius, although 40 degrees Celsius is normally enough. When you wash your clothes, you can use Woolcare, our own washing detergent for wool. It's a gentle detergent that contains lanolin, the natural fat found in wool, which helps to nurture the fine qualities of wool. You can also use a normal detergent or just wash with clean water. Fabric softener isn't necessary because Woolpower garments are soft and comfortable just as they are. The garments can also be machine dried, but as with all clothes, this shortens the lifespan of the garment. Every year, merino wool is delivered on rolls from hundreds of thousands of sheep to our factory in Östersund, after being dyed and spun in Europe. The first step for us is the knitting. We also knit our own unique Ulfroté original fabric. Seams are the most fragile part of the garment, and they can also itch when you carry a rucksack. That's why we circular knit the sleeves, legs and torsos into finished tubes of all sizes. This means that Woolpower's clothes don't have any longitudinal seams that can break or itch. And we also end up with less waste material this way. Our knitting method has been developed to enhance the properties of wool and make it as functional as possible. People often experience that woolen clothes shrink when they're washed. We don't want that to happen to you. So we wash all knitted fabrics in our factory instead, just with plain water, nothing else. Once the pieces have dried, we use heat and steam to shape them on metal figures. This makes the fabric soft and gives it the right shape. Once we've cut out all the garment pieces, our seamstresses take over. In a traditional textile factory, each machine is managed by a seamstress who sews the same seam over and over again, and then passes the garment to the next person who sews another seam. The result is a very monotonous and stressful work environment. At Woolpower, we've changed all that. At our factory, nobody gets paid per garment made. The seamstresses move between the machines and they act as their own quality inspector, using the quality standards set up in the factory. At the end of the day, they carefully examine the clothes that they've sewn. If any errors are found, the garment is sold at a reduced price as an imperfect garment in our factory store. If the seamstress or seamster is satisfied with the garment, they sign it with their own name. So the name tag is a quality seal, and it also lets our customer know that there's a person behind each and every piece of clothing. A person with a great deal of knowledge about their craft. And the garment's complete. The clothes are packed in the factory in Östersund and then shipped out around the world. How should you dress to retain heat? It's not easy to know how to dress to keep warm. In fact, many people don't have a clue. One common perception is that clothes should fit as close to the body as possible, so that no air can get in. But how does it actually work? First, a little lesson about the body. The body needs energy in the form of food and water. This energy is used for us to maintain body temperature, pump around blood, make the muscles perform work, and for the brain to function properly. Different people need different amounts of energy to keep their body heat at the right level. In a cold climate, we need extra energy, but we also need to move more and wear the right type of clothes. When your body becomes cold, it tries to create heat by shivering, using involuntary muscle movements to create heat. The body can increase its own heat production by 4 to 5 times by shivering. When you get cold, blood flow to the hands and feet also decreases to prioritize warmth to the heart, brain, and other life-sustaining organs. That's why you feel cold in your hands and feet, even if the rest of your body feels warm. In other words, it helps to put on a hat or an extra sweater when your feet are cold. One effective way to dress right in a cold climate is to follow the multi-layer approach. It provides flexible and simple protection against the cold, wind and wet, while also being easy to alter by removing a layer if your body gets too warm. Different layers can also trap different amounts of air. Woolpower's collection of base layers, mid-layers, socks and accessories has been developed in a cold temperature testing centre just around the corner in northern Sweden, over a long period and with the help of our researchers. Woolpower has developed a whole collection of clothing items that can be combined in different ways depending on the temperature and type of activity. The Ulfrotte original fabric is available in different thicknesses: 200, 400, 600 and 800, with different features and benefits. Woolpower Light is made from a thinner fabric and works well as a warming layer or as a cooler alternative in warmer conditions. We focus on layer 1 and layer 2. Sweating is a completely normal reaction when the body gets too hot and the skin needs to cool down. The skin is cooled down through moisture and sweat evaporating. This is perfect in a warm climate when you don't need to wear a lot of clothes. But in a cold climate, uncontrolled sweating can be devastating if your clothes get wet and you decrease your activity level. Water conducts heat 25 times more efficiently than air does, and you'll quickly get cold with wet clothes. So, a heat-insulating and moisture-wicking layer is what's needed next to the body. Woolpower Light has all the properties needed to keep you warm, but it's suitable for the summer too, as the garment also cools you down when it's hot outside. Light can be worn as a base layer or under our mid-layer garments. Ulfrotte Original 200 is a warmer fabric thanks to the terry loops inside that trap a lot of air. It can be worn next to the skin or as a layer too. For many activities though, the 200-gram sweater is sufficient alone. If it's not raining or the wind isn't too harsh, you can save the windproof layer to when you take a break. The 200-gram garment lets in air from the outside, thus cooling, while releasing excess heat from the inside. This creates a balance and increases comfort. Ulfrotte Original 400 is a mid-layer, and these garments provide extra insulation to retain body heat. If it's cold or during less strenuous activity, a thicker layer is needed. The temperature and activity level determine what thickness you need in your mid-layer. Look for a wind and water repellent shell that protects against external cooling and retains the heat created between Woolpower's first and second layers. Modern shell garments release a small amount of moisture through the material. During strenuous activity, it should be possible to open the jacket at the neck, cuffs, or through other openings for ventilation. An additional layer can be put on while resting, or when it's time to set up camp, when you'll be less active. An extra layer made of down or synthetic filling is easy to put on and take off over the shell. For many professionals, clothes are absolutely crucial. When we get cold, many important functions can be impaired, such as the ability to move properly and certain reflexes. The ability to concentrate, pay attention, be effective, and make the right decisions can all be adversely affected. So, from a safety and efficiency point of view, dressing properly is very important. In addition to protection against cold, certain work also requires clothing that provides additional safety aspects. Our Woolpower Protection Collection is certified for flame retardant, anti-static, and electric arc protection. We have certified clothing in both the Ulfrotte and the Light ranges. Our certifications adhere to European standards. But Woolpower's clothes aren't only used by professionals. For many people, their Woolpower garment is a constant companion and a friend during a forest walk or when skiing, hiking, or cycling. Many people are active, some are even extreme, while others just enjoy being outside. People of all ages can fall in love with a Woolpower sweater, young as well as old. For decades, Woolpower has developed and tested knitting methods and fabric compositions to improve the properties of the wool. Today, our clothes are used by many, both professionally and privately, but everyone has one thing in common. They want clothes that allow them to spend time in cold environments, and they care about how the clothes are made. Woolpower's clothes fulfill their important function. They keep you warm and dry. They last for a long time, but they're timeless. And they're manufactured with responsibility and respect for people, animals, and nature. And you always know who made your sweater.